For too long, the divine feminine has been asked to wait. Wait for permission, wait for recognition, wait for the world to be ready. She has been patient, nurturing, and endlessly forgiving, holding space in silence while systems built on imbalance thrived. But that era is over. The divine feminine is no longer content to whisper in the background or soften her power to make others comfortable. She is rising, not as a reaction, but as a reckoning. This is not about rejecting the masculine, but about reclaiming what has been suppressed: intuition, emotional truth, wild wisdom, sacred rage, and generative power. It's time to move on from outdated roles and narratives. The divine feminine is no longer waiting, she is leading, from passive patience to active power, redefining the divine feminine. For generations, the divine feminine has been framed through the lens of stillness. She waits, she listens, she supports. Her power has been painted as soft, yielding, and endlessly accommodating. While these qualities are sacred and essential, they represent only part of the story. The full expression of the divine feminine includes not only compassion and patience, but also fire, ferocity, and decisive action. We are now witnessing a profound shift. The divine feminine is moving from a place of passive patience to active power. No longer content with watching from the sidelines, she is stepping fully into her voice, her body, her knowing. This is not a rebellion, it's a return to balance, where feminine energy is recognized not only for what it holds, but for what it initiates. This redefinition means saying no just as often as yes. It means setting boundaries, not just offering forgiveness. It means trusting intuition over external validation. It means speaking out, even if your voice shakes. And it means understanding that waiting for change is not the same as creating it. The new expression of the divine feminine is bold. She leads with grace, but she doesn't shrink to maintain harmony. She disrupts when necessary. She births new systems and burns down what no longer serves. This isn't softness lost, it's softness integrated with strength. As this power rises within individuals and collectives, we're invited to embody the full spectrum of the feminine. The time of waiting is over. The time of becoming is now. Breaking the myth of the good woman, liberation from social conditioning. There is a myth that lives quietly in the background of many lives. A myth that has shaped behavior, relationships, and entire lifetimes. It is the myth of the good woman. She is kind, but never confrontational. She gives without needing. She smiles when she's uncomfortable. She serves, supports, and sacrifices. She is everything to everyone, except herself. For generations, this image has been held up as the gold standard of womanhood. Be polite, be quiet, be helpful, be small, be desirable, but not too sexual. Be strong, but don't intimidate anyone. Be smart, but never outshine a man. Above all, don't disrupt. This myth was never rooted in sacred feminine energy. It was rooted in control. The divine feminine, in her true essence, was never meant to be domesticated into passivity. She is wild, intuitive, powerful, and profoundly creative. She births life and also ends cycles that are no longer aligned. She is not afraid to feel deeply, to love fiercely, and to rage righteously. But when society decided that this was too much, it broke her into pieces and sold only the ones that were easy to manage. And so many of us inherited that brokenness. We learned that love is earned through self-denial, that our worth is tied to how much we endure, that saying no makes us difficult, that our value lies in how comfortable we make others feel. This is how systems of patriarchy, capitalism, and religion have tamed the sacred feminine, by turning her divinity into duty, by making women believe that goodness requires their silence. But the divine feminine is waking up, and she's no longer playing by those rules. Liberation begins with unlearning. It starts when we ask, who told me I had to be small? Who benefits from my exhaustion? What am I afraid will happen if I choose myself? These are not simple questions, because the conditioning runs deep. But each time we reclaim our voice, our boundaries, our pleasure, and our presence, we dismantle the myth. To break the myth of the good woman is not to reject goodness itself. It is to redefine it. Goodness is not compliance. Goodness is truth. It is integrity. It is alignment. A truly good woman is not one who pleases the world, but one who is in radical, honest relationship with her own soul. This reclamation will likely be uncomfortable. People may resist the change. You may grieve the version of yourself that worked so hard to be loved. But in the ashes of that old identity, something more sacred will rise. The sovereign feminine, whole, worthy, unapologetic. She no longer waits for permission. She no longer needs to be understood to know her value. She is not a myth. She is real, and she is done waiting. Feminine rage and sacred disruption. Embracing the dark goddess. There is a face of the divine feminine that many have feared, vilified, repressed, and labelled as dangerous. She is not soft. She is not patient. She does not smile to make you feel safe. She is Kali, Lilith, Medusa. She is the dark goddess. And she has been awakening inside of us all. Her presence is not gentle. She arrives like fire, like a storm, like a scream that has waited generations to be heard. This is not the rage of chaos. It is the rage of clarity. Feminine rage is sacred. It is not petty or irrational or unhinged, despite what the world has long tried to claim. It is the natural response to lifetimes of betrayal, suppression, and erasure. It is the collective howl of women who have been silenced, diminished, dismissed, and disrespected. It is the volcanic truth that erupts when healing can no longer happen in silence. We have been taught to fear this energy, to hide it, to call it shameful. A good woman does not get angry. She rises above. She keeps the peace. But the dark goddess says, what if peace is the problem? What if peace, as it has been defined, is simply the absence of female disruption? What if we've been told to forgive and forget, not for our healing, but for their comfort? Feminine rage is not the end of love. It is often the beginning of self-love. It is what happens when we remember that our boundaries matter, that our bodies are sovereign, that our voice is divine. It is not the desire to destroy for the sake of destruction, but the wisdom to know that some things must be torn down. Old systems, old stories, old selves. The dark goddess does not come to soothe. She comes to sever. She comes to liberate. She shows us that not all sacredness is sweet. Some of it is sharp, and she teaches us this. Destruction is part of creation. To embrace her is to embrace the parts of ourselves we were told to exile. The fury we swallowed, the truth we softened, the power we downplayed, the hunger we buried. But she does not ask us to burn everything. She asks us to burn what no longer serves. This is sacred disruption. This is alchemy. And it is happening now. In our relationships, our art, our leadership, our bodies. Feminine rage is rising, not to wreak havoc, but to restore balance, to demand justice, to birth something new. The dark goddess is not against the masculine, but she is against oppression, domination, and denial of the sacred feminine. When we embrace her, we remember we are not too much, we are not dangerous, we are medicine, and this world, in all its trembling systems, needs that medicine, desperately. Spiritual reclamation, leading from intuition in a hyper-logical world. We live in a world that worships logic, productivity, and control. A world where value is measured by how efficiently we perform, how rationally we speak, how predictably we behave. In this paradigm, the feminine principle, cyclical, emotional, intuitive, non-linear, has been dismissed as untrustworthy, irrelevant, or weak. But beneath that imposed structure, something ancient is stirring, a reclamation, a remembering. The divine feminine is returning not only as a force of healing, but as a guide, showing us how to lead, live, and create in a radically different way. This is spiritual reclamation, and at its core is a single, potent truth. Your intuition is sacred. For too long, intuition has been dismissed as soft or unscientific. In reality, it is the body's deep intelligence. It is the soul's knowing. It is the quiet whisper that often arrives before reason can catch up. While logic has its place, it cannot tell you what your spirit needs. It cannot hold the nuances of transformation. It cannot guide you through the mystery. Women and all beings attuned to the feminine have long carried this inner compass, but were taught to ignore it. We've been taught to second-guess ourselves, to over-explain, to defer to authority, to suppress what we feel in favour of what can be proven. As a result, many have lived lives that look perfect on paper, but feel hollow in the heart. The reclamation begins when we stop outsourcing our truth. It begins when we stop explaining our no. When we follow the pull that makes no sense but feels completely aligned. When we value presence over performance. When we let ourselves lead, create, and respond from a place deeper than strategy, from soul. This is not a call to reject logic. It's a call to reintegrate the feminine way of knowing, to bring our wholeness to the table. Because intuition is not the opposite of intelligence, it's a form of it. In a hyperlogical world, leading from intuition is an act of revolution. It means running your business in rhythm with your body. It means resting without guilt. It means saying, "This doesn't feel right," and letting that be enough. It means creating from inspiration, not obligation. It means trusting the unseen, the unquantifiable, the inner yes. And it also means being willing to be misunderstood. This path is not always easy. It doesn't come with a 5-step formula. It will challenge everything you've been taught about certainty, safety, and control. But what it gives you in return is priceless. Sovereignty, embodiment, clarity, peace that isn't dependent on productivity. As more of us reclaim our spiritual authority, we are creating new blueprints, new ways of leading, parenting, healing, and relating, ways that are rooted not in domination, but in deep listening, not in perfection, but in presence, not in force, but in flow. The divine feminine doesn't need to shout to be powerful. She simply speaks with the voice of truth, and those who are ready will hear her. The time for spiritual reclamation is now, not just for personal healing, but for collective evolution. The more we lead from within, the more we build a world that honours the wisdom of all.